I never felt that I'm on enemy territory, and I never felt as I'm in some kind of from personal level that I'm in some kind of conflicting position by coming on West. Yet I'm just today, after that many years, just today realizing that there is a considerable percentage of people that consider the entire situation as conflicting, and that I would see that they would see us in some kind of um, delicate position when it comes to our territories versus West. To the present day, I have not seen or felt like that. Um, and maybe that is the phenomenon of my mental conditioning being like that, is maybe because I'm being born after war, 1960, solidly after war. I don't have memories of war on personal level, and I don't hold that grudge. I don't exist in some kind of war sentiment because I have never been in it. And also, I belong. We also. I'm born in Yugoslavia. In Yugoslavia, at very early time, 1948. That is even. That's very much before my birth. Actually, again, I decided to go to move away from Russians and go with closer with West. So the entire spirit in Yugoslavia was very much pro-Western. In 80s it was equally Western. It was MTV all over the place. My generation was crafted by MTV. My generation, not just myself. It's my generation of Yugoslavia was crafted by MTV, music television. It was for young people, music have very strong place. 50s, in the way how 50s have been crafted by Elvis Presley, for example, or 60s, 80s have been crafted by avalanche of stars in music industry. Music industry was experiencing some kind of revolution, some kind of boom in 80s. Music in 80s was extremely rich. At the time, the time living in 80s was extremely interesting. It was all about music. It was all about being inventive, being creative, reinventing not just the music but the world as well. As a result, it happened. Music aid to Africa, and and to my generation it was so became so normal to think about the world. Um, and John Lennon's song happens. Um, my generation's sentiment about this world is worldly, and that is why I happened being born in such sentiment, living my entire life. I was 25 in 1960s. I was in time. I was 20. Sorry, 20 in 1960s. Age 20. So it was exactly my time. It was exactly me happening in my time. That enormous boom in music in music industry, and it completely defined was influencing to great an extent my life. We were having satellite dish in the building. I was having satellite television. I was completely defining and profiling my identity. So I wasn't profiled by First and Second World War sentiment. I was profiled by music television of West world. I was born. I am born in Yugoslavia. and from year 1948, Yugoslavia became pro-Western territory. I don't know about any other sentiment. And the older generations of Yugoslavia should understand that and should stop talking about kids of Titova Yugoslavia as they're some kind of non-existing embryos sitting in some kind of jars. We actually are born people, and we actually exist profiled and structured, crafted by our time. We have been crafted, we are crafted by the time in which we have been living. You might call it in whatever way you want. The fact is that when you make history in such a way and you participate in that history, as you have been all participating and living in that Yugoslavia, you have to accept the fact that kids born in such Yugoslavia are not are product of that Yugoslavia, and you cannot think of them in any other way because they do not know how to be any other way. They cannot be any other way. And that is why we are much more international. It was much more easier for us to go abroad and become a person of your own. You cannot expect of us to be political in some kind of first, second world sentiment because we don't want how to be political in form of world and second world sentiment. And I have noticed that recently, again, it's returning the spirit of first and second world war on this planet. And there are a generation of people that are not capable to get out of that sentiment. Well, these people should understand that there is a generation of us that would not know how to be in that sentiment because we have not lived it, because it was not reflecting our lives, because there is no any substance that such event happening in 40s, in 30s, can affect life of people born in 60s, in 70s, in 80s, in 90s, in 2000. There is no chance that these events can affect the life of these people. And I think that these oldies that are now in retirement villages, most of them, or retired people, should stop dictating the world because they are now retired and they are too old to be leaders of the modern world. By the way, clearly they're nothing of leaders they're nothing of creating modern world. They're creating world of catastrophe because they cannot get out of their war psychology and they cannot drop it. That is, cannot resign, and it is time for them to resign because they continue to pollute our world and to continue to bring this level of antagonism and war sentiment in our world. I'm going to find the real problem are generations of people born and that have been living, and the ones that have been living under in sentiment of First and Second World War. I'm going to see them as a real problem for this entire world because they have never exited from the war sentiment. Yet I'm going to remind the planet 1945, it has been declared peace on earth. And Second World War has ended. And peace was declared. And I cannot understand when people come here, when people continue to behave with that level of hatred and antagonism as the world never ended. And as the world peace was not actually declared. Now I'm returning my movie back, my memories back. And now I'm going to take more seriously the person I still call husband, which exists as a some kind of biological miracle stuck in the past time. He still live in some kind of sentiment of 50s, 60s, and even 30s. Um, because he belongs in category of people that is that reflect on older people. He was reflecting on his grandfather. Then he was reflecting on his mother. And these are people that have been living in war times. Now he took from them the psychology of that. Unlike my kind of people that have been living in their time and that are future looking people, and that they become crafted by their vision and by the times of that belong to that is being crafted by visionary. Usually, yes, I would be in category of progressive elements. Also, I bring quite of tradition. I have pulled out the entire historic heritage in the way in the same time. So I certainly brought that letter H very solidly. That is bringing the past into the present and into the future. I completely covered the territory here. And it's all was very much instinctive, without too much thinking about it, because I am naturally Aquarius. I'm naturally a future looking person. I'm naturally a visionary person. And it was very easy for me to bridge the worlds and to bring this contemporary discussion that is world level. And I cannot connect to the elements that continue to exist in the antagonisms of previous times, because I don't feel like that. I don't know, and I don't know how to feel like that, and I don't want to feel like that, because that is not how mindset exists. But I'm going to notice that this person, I still call husband, was filled with some negative energy. Well, I was providing some kind of positive criticism, or should I say creative corrective criticism, with intention to correct things and to make people to open their eyes and to say things. He was bringing element of hatred. I could have not recognized, because I have been living in my own cloud, thinking that the rest of the people are in that similar cloud, because after all, Yugoslavia was declared as pro-Western approach. So why I would not believe that the rest of the people would be living in similar cloud? Yet, I wasn't aware that there would be people that feel natural hatred or natural antagonism with some parts of the world. And that is, I'm not going to call it a weak point, but that is something that I missed to take more seriously. And I'm saying it now, like for the first time, that there are actually people that exist in the war sentiment and that never got out of the war sentiment. So it is not that as some people want to talk, to refer to the time itself, like time itself behaves. No, people behave in the time. And you have to say that some people cannot get out from war sentiment. You cannot talk about these matters as are outside of the domain of human. No, they are a result of the behavior of a human, which means that the humans are bringing that kind of constant war sentiment, because the humans, or some percentage of humans, cannot get out of that war memory and war sentiment. And because they cannot get out of it, they continue to drag over and over and over that negativity on the planet, and continue to prolong the war sentiment and war preconditioning, which then deliver another war and another war and another war. In order that we stop war on the world, the people that are fed and full with this kind of negativity and war sentiment should stop projecting on the planet that war sentiment and such hatred and such conflicts on the planet. They should stop projecting it on the planet and among the rest of the people. They should stop that hatred. I have been listening the people speaking in after demolition of Yugoslavia. I recently have been listening them, not while I was studying here again. I didn't have that much time to follow anything really, and YouTube was not that much developed. Now we have that opportunity to listen more uh, 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 and get much more realistic impression about the actual sentiment of people in the territories. And I'm just surprised how far it managed to return that war sentiment on these territories the moment they got out mentally from Yugoslavia. And the moment they started to throw stones on Yugoslavia, they at the same time returned in the sentiment in the war sentiment. And in Second World War sentiment immediately jumped and immediately returned in Second World War sentiment. Or some even in First World. The one that are Muslim driven even in First World sentiment. Because it seems that First World War happened much more with Muslim presence. It was more present Turkey, more present Middle East. Second war became a heavier European platform. Um, and I gained that sentiment all of a sudden that these people, after demolition, dismiss of Yugoslavia, simply returned in extreme war sentiment, continuing to blame foreigners for destruction of Yugoslavia. Well, actually, they are the ones that have ordered it. Yes, actually, people of Yugoslavia order, or some percentage of people of Yugoslavia, some elite levels of people of Yugoslavia, have ordered demolition of Yugoslavia because they hated it so much, and there is profound percentage of people that continue to hate Yugoslavia. They have not seen it as a territories walking to the time and within various political formations. They have a natural extreme hatred versus that entire event, as it is in question some kind of code that someone throw on them, and they just simply can take it out and completely return the time in pre-Yugoslavian period, because that is exactly what they have managed to do. They just took out the code called Yugoslavia. Now it is fascinating how some people can actually do that. When there is entire generation that is born in Yugoslavia and does not know to be anything else but Yugoslavia. That is how much continue to be fascinating to me, that these people that have been living pre-Yugoslavia continue to take over the entire time, as there is nothing else after them. And would they have time? Would they have right to take over the time? Since the fact that they are already old. That most of them are in retirement or close to retirement. Do they have a right to continue to lead the times from the tail? And no wonder that we found ourselves today in tail going ahead time, because these retirement people just don't want to retire. They continue to be the head of any event. I mean, there is a reason why I voted for Barack Obama. I was supporting Barack Obama, because he was a young person, and I recognize even then how critically important is that you be young, fresh, and clean from the previous frustrations. Only then you can be leading. You can be leading with your head ahead. Only then you have head as a leadership. When you bring young people, my generation is not young anymore. Yet it is continue to be young to the extent that our parents are still holding the powers out there and are completely numb, completely disrespectful on my generation. Like we don't even exist, like we don't even matter, like we are some kind of disposable or something. And like they're more important. Like they're the defining point and we are just accident or mistake. Excuse me, from my point, you are the accident and mistake yourself. And the way how they treat people is not same how Yugoslavia was talking about Titova Yugoslavia. He was talking about young people as a normal human being. We have returned in times where humanity split to wolves and sheep and continue to jump over the sheep. And I'm going to notice Ireland. Ireland, that has to do plenty with you, Ireland. And the main disease in Europe, Ireland, is yourself. Ireland is the main disease in Europe because Ireland is the oldest society of all and the most influential because of exactly that Iron Age grasp they have in certain cultural development, and that they have managed to, at that time, to walk over territories and still have that network, that cultural network over the territories, and still continue to pollute the world with this over pagan and over ancient and archaic sentiment that all of a sudden get on the surface just because certain territories in the corners of this planet cannot get out from their past. That is what my work became very much about, getting them out from that hole, from that mental hole, and talking to them about how the world should be, as if they want to be part of that world, or they will continue to be on the corners, they will continue to be called extremism, and they will continue to be seen as extremism. And today we are wiser and we have much more free mental space to see beyond the scripts of the previous times, beyond the brainwashing of the previous times. And I can see today that nothing stands at the position of Northern Ireland, that the problem is not in Northern Ireland, the problem is in Ireland. And Northern Ireland is just reflecting it. Northern Ireland is just the gateway of it. The real problem is Ireland as being very old society, and in certain ways beaching the rest of the humanity from such cornerstones, beaching the rest of the humanity. And the Britannia should notice where is the core authority or responsibility for all this kind of very, very prime civilizational setting. They should stop blaming Serbia for it without while ignoring Ireland. Excuse me, guys. The matrix of all of that disease is behind your back, and I'm not going to accept second-hand blame. Well, you are ceasing your daring to talk to Ireland properly because it is too close to you and because you don't know how to talk to Ireland. Excuse me, guys. I'm not going to take on my back your own deficiency to deal with your own situation because that's your island. And technically it's your situation. So why you're constantly throwing it on my side of the history when it started and when it does have its embryo on your Britannia? After all, you're holding the hedge stone, the stone hedge. Stonehenge is not in Iran before it's to be in Britannia. Maybe it is Iran. I don't know that Iranians have Stonehenge, but you for sure have it. And you call it like that, and you're still celebrating it like that. Well, Iran is not exactly doing that. No, I'm not going to excuse Iran. No, at all. But fact is that in Middle East, someone constantly throw regimes to them as some kind of disease that they cannot get out of it. They cannot get out of that disease. They want to be democratic, they want to be modern. Their new generations want to be modern as everyone else, but someone constantly throw at them regimes. And then you go out there and you blame them. And then we go out there and we blame them. Well, excuse me, the West is the one that is throwing regimes at them so they can control them better. So no, I'm not going to blame second-hand event in Iran. And I'm not going to excuse you anymore, Westerlies, for trying to see the problems on the other side of the equation and being cowardly on confronting it on your own island. Excuse me, but you're going to notice that the matrix of the problem is Britannia. And you, Britons, have no idea how to deal with it. And it is time your new generations to understand that. Because throwing stones at everyone from their position is not how they're going to solve the situation. They're just going to contribute the entire situation to escalate. And they would further not have a clue how to deal with that situation. Well, if they don't know how to deal with the situation, they should not project leadership either. As of Russians, I can't find point of validation for Russians. Russians, for me, although someone said the other day, control one of the largest territories of the world, Russians do not have identity. So it makes it rather pointless. You have that vast territory, but you just don't shine anything out from it. You're rather absorbing it. That looks to me as a moon rather than as a sun. Russia defined. Excuse me, but no one else can be claimed for the fact that Russian girls were in 90s the highest prostitutes of international market, or in all of the actually Cold War. Well, that should go on hand with concept of white army and the fact that white is actually W protocol to black or to green, to green, Muslim green. White is W protocol to Muslim green, which means that white army of Russia is actually next generation of Muslim population. Now, Muslim territories are quite complex. You have Serb element there, but also you have some other tribes living there. And the genetic card gets more complex. I'm not referring here to purely to genetics, but to political, to actual charging of the platform itself. Not from biological side, but from political side. And from rather cultural side. That is to explain why the events that happen with a reemergence of white army actually coincidence with increase of prostitution, of Russian prostitution on international market. So where exactly one is going to notice Russia here? or that vast territory having any meaning, therefore, but being some kind of Middle Eastern reservoir for production of new world, that then become treated as it is treated, because the fabric of Muslim territories is very, very pagan, old, similarly as Irish. That is where these two unite at that ancient predatory protocol, and you get very similar effect as with Stonehenge in Ireland. Very similar event in Middle East among the Muslims, and treating also the younger population as are bunch of animals, dehumanizing them, and treating them in such dehumanized mode that explain the situation with Russia in recent history. So that is, it's nothing here of West to be blamed, or Americans to be blamed for it, or Irish to be blamed for it specifically. It is a Russian event. It is product of Russia. It is the result of Russian circumstances and Russian political stage, and how that political stage function, and what is the actual motor behind it. But that unfortunate situation is completely Russian event. In other words, no one is selling their girls on international market and making them prostitutes. That is what the Russians are doing by themselves to their girls. And Russians cannot blame anyone else for it, because that is a Russian event. And they need to deal with that on their Russian big territory. Rather than to go in war and try to blame someone else, by going in that little war, they try to bring the blame of everything that is deficient on their territories to blame someone else, just because they're in that little war. I'm going to notice that that little war with Ukraine exists so they can continue blaming everyone else and cleaning themselves like a cat from all of the dirt that they have been creating to its own people as themselves and as no one else has done to them. Not that Napoleon that went there without knowing why on earth he's going there, and stayed there, either Hitler or Napoleon, stayed there for a couple of nights. That's not going to excuse Russians for how they are managing their own people. There's going to be Russian question, and equally as it is British question what Ireland is doing, it is Russian question what Russians are doing, or the one behind their back. Yes, behind their back. It's predominantly Middle East, but to the extent that Middle East has become such numb puppet, we have to look further. And further means Japan and China. Well, it seems it needs to get worse before it gets better, as with anything else on this planet. As someone wisely said, Japan and Russia. I have to notice that the forces that are awakening, I have to notice that the forces that are awakening there are awakening in the wrong way. Well, you want it that way, you have it that way. I'll be prepared for getting your dessert properly as well. And because I'm promoting a monarchy protocol, I'm going to say, therefore, as 21st century, I'm delivering this work in some kind of monarchical concept. I will need to clarify that that is nothing of classic, as I have explained myself rather as a visionary and looking into the future. So everything about me is going to be rather futuristic, not in negative ways. I also hate when people define future in some kind of black scenarios, and it's always some kind of over technocratic and out of control. No, my future is actually beautiful and under control, and I don't want anyone to say it in any other way while stepping in my shoes. First of all, my shoes are not for someone else when they are my shoes to walk, and accordingly, monarchy I awaken today is rather professional, assisted by professionals. That is where government comes, and that is the entire purpose of having government, to professionally assist monarch, because family members at some point become useless and rather a burden. We have Gospođa Ministarka, very good piece of work by Njušić, of Serbia, that was explaining brilliantly how what a burden a family can become when in question professional work. I still call my work professional. It's a very professional approach, although it's monarchical stamp. It's still very much actual work, and I feel over annoyed by any family interference that are going out there even to take some kind of managing positions. Well, I have not given them even the appointments. So that's already reaching some madness dimension. And the entire concept of ancient kingdoms, therefore, today will need to be completely reorganized and rearranged. What stays forever are the kings and the queens, the temples themselves. The order is not forever and never will be forever. Learn that properly. I cannot accept my family in charge of my affairs. That is out of question. Neither my friends. That is out of question. Out of question. Out of question. If I find certain family members that I want to play with them, or I find them critically important for my work, I have spelled out that would be my two kids that I find very critical important to continue to assist me, therefore, and be first-hand informed about what I do here, because they're the one after me that will need to somehow administrate the heritage of it. Apart of that, everyone else will be aligned in accordance with how I see them relating to the events I'm discussing, and would find them useful. If I find them useful, then I am the one to use them in some kind of diplomatic purposes, and so on and so on. It's not going to be other way around. It's out of question it's going to be other way around. Out of question there's going to be other way around. That is where we are with that particular matter. Rather highly professional, rather relying on professional structure crafted out of nation. There is government, and this government is under duty to employ the best of these people. And at this point, we stop talking about politicized parties. When nation become nation again, you don't have political parties anymore. You have departments. It's this agricultural department, economic department, business departments, blah, blah, blah. And you have consortium of the best of the people, like upper house, the best of the nation, that are playing this kind of advisory, that are advisors. And then you have the hierarchy going on, made out of professionals. Now, the advisors, that is where monarchy, active monarchy, that is the one that provides platform, and platform that is a winning platform. In my case scenario, that is now planetary platform as well, is administrating the advisors as well, because it is critically important that they be tuned within the platform that monarch is providing. That is the active monarch, the real monarch is providing. The advisors should be basically become the round table of King Arthur. And that is the best of the nation, and that's nation defined. What political parties on earth you're talking about? Now, when you don't have active monarchy, then you have idealism, the most ideal concept, constitutional, let's call it, constitution, being present to administrate the actual conduct of the round table. But if you have active monarch, then ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, but then you have active monarch. That's not excluded scenario. That is valid scenario, and whenever is happening, it is to be validated. That is the world in which we live right now. And you should accept it. Because not accepting reality becomes in category of medical conditioning. Yes, I'm not joking. It's true. Not accepting reality or trying to run away from reality is medical conditioning. And I cannot sleep over this today, although it wasn't my plan actually. But every single day I reawaken with next discussion that appears even more serious than the previous, although I was thinking every single day that just, the planet is really trying hard to make me irrelevant, so why on earth I give a heck anyway, it's not private matter. And each time I get out of my mouth something being provoked, some kind of still reasoning that I would initially think, okay, it's just a spark of reasoning, I just need to clarify this. And I find myself in the latest discussion that appears as the most important thing of the time, and I just each day get trapped by it, and each day over and over and over I get trapped on this working room, and I cannot deny it anymore. I cannot deny it anymore, and neither you can, the world, deny it anymore, because it is indicative of something rather happening on the planet itself, that you are in quite serious mess. That you are in quite a serious mess. That is the only reason why I cannot get out of my working room. You are in serious mess, planet Earth. And it's time to admit that. And it's time to notice that. And it is time to notice my work responsibly and appropriately. I have no intention of returning home because I have just realized that I have been hated a lot there, and it's something that I will never forget. I'm not easy on forgiving people, although I fight very hard to accept someone's mistakes, and I fight like a tiger without being aware that it has already been done. It's more like I stop a time, or I try to stop the time, but I can't. I can't erase what they have done. They would know that that something like that would not be forgivable, and that will never be forgiven. So let's not argue about it. Let's not even argue about it. I'm going to employ a completely professional approach without any sentiment, and that is I'm choosing Britannia because I'm bringing planetary protocol, and I want to bring that level of game field. And Britannia is the most convenient for it. I also genetically connect to the iron times, so I'm quite tuned with that territory more, I would say, than with territories from where I'm being born. Although I bring solid philosophical discussion, it is very much life related in the way how people of our territories have never been that much accommodated to talk with that much analysis of personal lives, I think. So that is already Western, I would rather say, that point of more um, developed or later approach to philosophy. The legal aspect is also not exactly what territories from where I'm born are accommodated to. Neither plan to get there because it's more like organic Wild West. And if we talk about waters emerging always from the earth, that energy emerging is harder to constrain. I don't have time to waste. I'm speaking of constitution of earth, not of earth organic or natural. Because there are 7 billions of people that expect order to be declared to them. They actually need order so they can function. So certainly positioned from some kind of source of anything is not what we are looking today. We are looking at capacity, someone's capacity to deliver constitutional word, and that is myself. That is the dot where I position my work on that curve called civilizational development. And it is rather on the top of that curve, not where is the bottom of it. Accordingly, I mean, I just wanted to really speak about graphics, but it turned to be language unavoidably cultural. Anyway, I wanted to say that I'm speaking to the world, and I don't have time to waste. That translates to me into Britannia stage, which therefore I want it available completely for my work, and the one that already have fallen in the shadows of this work should find for themselves other place to live. I am not joking. I don't have time to waste. I think I think West should be privileged for choosing them as a place from where I'm going to deliver planetary governance. Accordingly, no personal positioning can walk here stronger than what this duty call employs. Consider it as a duty call, and I expect you to fully assist me with this. We're going to find monarchy more useful than not. From my perspective, I don't have enough information, so I'm going to leave that question open. But the direction should be by now more clear. Ireland, I think I can handle Ireland by heart, in the way how Queen Arturia would do, by heart. I bring America with me, and I bring Russia with me. My Russia and my America. That's big territory, so clearly each of us have our bits there left. Speaking of my kind, of course, is from perspective of principal imperial bloodline. I'm talking about the sentiments and the emotions and the mental state and the reasoning. And you tell me where else human would happen a part of these corridors. The answer is yours. Let's hear it. In Africa, Jesus is traveling towards you. I will be drawing the cross all over your continent. Africa, there is no point of return. Salute, Africa. And to Donald Trump, NATO will become now my European army, because in my world, Donald Trump things are actually moving. They're not like from the stone age, or should I say stone hedge. So in my world, things are moving on daily basis. And a reason why I call this active time or time of active monarch. Therefore, no one would have daring to touch NATO now, because I am reincarnating Europe, and NATO is going to be the most important army in the world. I am not joking. I am enclosing Russians to NATO. That is in my world, and in my world things would be happening at the moment I spell it out. The Western territories, or the West Wing, which I would rather, where I would rather find not Charlie Sheen, but Martin Sheen walking there rather than Donald Trump, because we talk about America. And in America, I just wonder how on earth Martin Sheen ended in Hollywood and Donald Trump in real world. When I'm walking Serbian first account with this work, and Donald Trump pretend that Martin Sheen is just Hollywood. I don't like that America. And that is my message to Trump and his vision of NATO. I give him my vision of America in return. And as much as he is eager to walk in Europe, I would be eager to walk in his America behind his back. But each time Donald Trump spell out word NATO, I will be spelling word Martin Sheen and West Wing rather than America, because I am the active temple today, not Donald Trump. I am recalibrating this world today, and it's going to be how I need it to be. I need European army. No one is going to dare to touch it. In contrary, I'm going to unite it with Russians, because Russia, I need to make Russia European again, and that means Russia, there will be Russia of Europe. That Russia of Europe will be part of NATO. And they all together would have also Germany as a strong presence, and they all together are going to defend my temples and temples of my fathers and mothers. In case someone have eye on our temples, I have therefore Mr. Donald Trump, and that is Donald Trump himself, obviously, having his eyes, his hands now all over my family. I will need to explain to him that I will be using entire European and Russian military capacity to defend our temples. And if that means to hit Capitol Hill in return as well, so they understand what they're talking about, that will be in the plan as well. Donald Trump thinking of my family temples once again. Capitol Hill on the Zoom, together with his White House. I'm just explaining what is the weight we are talking about here, in case someone lost orientation and sense of reality. Temples are more important than your buildings. Now let's get sober. Donald Trump's trumpets, let's get sober. As far as I'm concerned, Donald Trump lost any credibility further on because of his sickening vision of place of America in this world. For me, America is always going to be important only by understanding how they really relate to the rest of the world. If they don't understand that, there will never be America in real terms, but some kind of plankton floating on the surface of the oceans of this world. And it is to be noticed that as much as it seems that we need to bring intervention elsewhere, but not on the west side, it appears that we need to bring intervention on the west side before to be elsewhere, or elsewhere as well, of course, with a very rightful judgment and very correct judgment, but certainly not excluding Americans as well, on which we all rely still very much, and just because of that, we are not ready to give up on what is happening on that territory.